So, okay, good evening, good evening. This is Jeff Berger, and I am tuning in from Cape Coral, Florida. We have Dr. Georgia Balsley on from Michigan. She is our guru, naturopath, who is the wealth of information with this series called Getting to the Root of It. We are resuming this month of September. Stay tuned till the end because I'll let you know what's happening in October, November, and December. But this is series number 10. We're going to be talking about hormones and the microbiome. For many of you who know and those who don't know, we are privileged to be associated with the first holistic mental wellness company that focuses on the microbiome, which is the gut-brain axis. And these series that we're doing, Getting to the Root of It, is really focusing on the microbiome and how it impacts health in general, autoimmune diseases, as well as mental wellness when it comes to anxiety, depression, suicide, Alzheimer's, so forth and so on. I do want to say that we just got back from a symposium, our first holistic mental wellness symposium, and some incredible announcements, some new platforms that have been introduced or announced that are coming down the pipeline, and lots of exciting things in this platform that we have to offer not only the wellness partners, but also our customers, preferred customers as well. So we're having some incredible results, and I want to share some nuggets with you. This is an informational session in regards to getting information and helping people really switch their way of thinking, because there's so many people out there that are they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, but they're looking and they don't know where to look. And we want to be able to direct you into an avenue that will provide you some other information, and then you make the decision. You've got to make your own educated decision. We're here to guide you from that. So again, we're both humbled that you folks are on here tonight with us. And feel free to reach out to your family and friends for future ones that we're going to be doing. And towards the end, we'll try to open up for Q&A. I like to keep it between 30 and 45 minutes max. And if we got to follow up afterwards, we'll do that. But with no further ado, I want to introduce Dr. Georgia Balsley from Michigan. She is a colleague of mine, and I'm really humbled to call her a really good friend. We're developing a wonderful relationship in regards to, this industry and the platform that we have, and really growing as spiritual beings. And just really, I'm really humbled that she's part of my life in that aspect. But she resides in Michigan. She is a daughter. She is a wife. She is a mom of 9 children, and she also served in the military. Thank you for your service. And if you could just share with our viewers a little bit about your background and what really got you into the naturopathic domain.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeff. And it's my honor. Really excited to be partnered with you and the places that we're going and truly changing lives. I got involved in the naturopathic realm. I was in the military as a corpsman. I worked in cardiac cancer and finished out in the emergency room. And my dream was to become a doctor. So at that time, nuclear medicine, forensic medicine were just on the forefront. It was untapped medicine, so to speak. At that time, we did not have that type of equipment, and it was just something that was very intriguing to me. After I left the military and my honorable discharge, I started searching and working, and unfortunately some of my training didn't transfer over, so I had to start all over again. And fortunately I was young enough to be able to do that, and in the course of trying to get into a career pathway that I could start making money, 6 months before I was to graduate, the school ended up closing. The dean's wife had passed away, so he closed the school. And I just felt like God was sending me a huge message telling me I needed to be doing something else. So that something else came up in the form of starting a family. So in the course of starting a family, you get children that get earaches and they get stuffy noses and upper respiratory infections, and it just didn't feel right to me, some of the things that we were doing. And so I started delving into actually homeopathic work as well as some herbal. Unfortunately, there wasn't many providers in my area so that I couldn't bounce ideas off. And so I started doing some work in that line, very limited until my fourth child got extremely sick, and allopathic medicine was not touching his issues. So I reached out to somebody who was in the holistic field. I had gotten him tested. It was actually quite surprising for me, some of the things that she had found, and for me to wrap my brain around with a medical background, but he wasn't responding, so let's give it a try. And his life definitely transformed. And when I look back on it, Jeff, it started with the gut. That's what's so super cool. Those messages were there all along, and we just didn't put them together. And so I jumped head first into naturopathic work, worked for this provider for 10 and a half years, and I've been doing this work well over 30. And just watching our patients' lives transform has been such a pleasure. Back in the day when the gut wasn't the cool thing, right? When the gut wasn't cool, we were talking about the gut and how it would definitely transform health in the human body, and made a lot of fun about, in the allopathic world, because they didn't wrap their brain around it. But look at all the science that's coming forth to teach us what we were thinking back then, and even more so now, of how it's linked to every function in the body, which is super cool.
Awesome. Yeah. And man, it goes back to the gut feeling. We've had those since probably Adam and Eve days. But we're now getting, as you say, the science is there. The research and clinical studies are proving with this new science, which is really, we're disrupting the health and wellness industry, which is pretty awesome. So with that, the microbiome, for those that don't know, it's a gut-brain axis. We got the vagus nerve that connects the gut and the brain, and there's that communication gap. And so many of us today who are suffering autoimmune diseases, I say that this vagus nerve is a parking lot, and it's just traffic jam. And what we're trying to do is to clean that up, starting with the gut, and then going up to the brain, and just making that communication really symbiotic and just really working together very nicely. And so tonight we're going to be talking about hormones, which is a huge topic. And hormones are secreted by glands, and there are 15 glands in our body, and these glands can excrete or secrete anywhere from 1 to multiple hormones into your body. And we're not going to be talking about all 15 tonight. We're going to start out with, talking about the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is located in your head, and it's known as the master gland, which is important to brain health. And, so Dr. Georgia, talk about the pituitary gland and the importance of the relationship with the microbiome and the pituitary gland.
So, thank you. Yes, I would love to. So the pituitary gland is, or known as the hypophysis. When you took science class, remember the hypophysis? It's a pea-sized endocrine gland. It's attached to the base of the brain. And so people kind of think that it's way back here, but it really isn't. Like if we were to go at the base of the brain, if you went to the roof of the mouth and up, that's where the pituitary would be located. And so, there's actually 2 parts to your pituitary. Most people don't realize that. It's just a pituitary gland, right? So you have an anterior pituitary and a posterior pituitary, and each are responsible for doing different functions. So it's really important because that gland is the master gland that controls all the other glands. And the anterior pituitary, it produces and secretes several peptide hormones that regulate physiological processes like stress, growth, and reproduction. And our posterior pituitary gland, it's primarily responsible for the release and storage of antidiuretic hormones and oxytocin. Oxytocin is something that's really important for satisfaction in our mental wellness. We don't realize that. The antidiuretic hormones regulate our body's use of water as well. And it's essential for the proper functioning of the kidney. So you can see how this gland can do so many things.
Awesome. That little thing does so much, and it's the master gland that runs all the other glands. So speaking of the kidneys, we're going to talk next about the adrenal gland, which actually sits on top of the kidneys, and my understanding is that they are kidney shaped, and they're like a kidney bean size. And this is the gland that produces the sex hormones and cortisol. We're not going to be talking about sex hormones tonight. We'll save that for next week, or I mean in 2 weeks. But today we're going to talk about cortisol, which is the stress hormone that we deal with. Many of us deal with many times on a daily basis. And I want to make sure that I get this right. So when your stress level goes up, it really activates and changes your microbiome. And from that, it really affects your brain and your behavior from that aspect. And there's what's called an inflammatory cytokines that trigger this, and it disrupts the neurochemistry of the brain, which then ultimately results in anxiety and stress, and which is stress, but depression. Anxiety and depression are the two that I want to say. So with that, I think everybody, I'm not going to say think, I know everybody has been under some kind of stress in their life at some point, whether it's constantly or sporadically. But explain, Dr. Georgia, the impact of the microbiome and how this really intertwines with the cortisol that's produced from the adrenal gland.
Sure. So you're right. The adrenal glands, they sit right over our kidneys, and people don't really understand the amount of stress that those little glands go under. And oftentimes I will ask my patients if they are suffering from lower back pain, right across that strap, right across your hips. And that's an effect of the adrenals. And they do sit up atop our kidneys, and they produce hormones that regulate our metabolism, our immune system, blood pressure, our stress responses. They're essential functions, and quite frankly, you can't live without them. The adrenal glands are also composed of two parts. They're the cortex and the medulla. Each again are responsible for different jobs within the body. The adrenal cortex is the outer region, and it's the largest part of the adrenal gland, and it's divided into separate zones. Each zone is responsible for producing certain hormones. And then you have the adrenal medulla. It's located inside the adrenal cortex, and in the center of that adrenal gland, it produces that stress hormone, including adrenaline. So when we get that adrenaline rush, and how many people do we know that live in fight or flight? That parasympathetic, they're real jumpy, like, oh, you stuck up on me. And quite frankly, a little lately, I've been a little like that, and just don't like being startled or scared, and easily startled and easily scared. And that's that stress response being affected by those adrenals. And so when we talk about cytokines, there are different cytokines that create inflammation. And so we look at cortisol responses because of that. That's the hormone that the adrenals will release. And in our practice, we will do actually saliva testing so that we can see how the adrenals are functioning through the day based on cortisol levels because of how it's put out. And it's amazing sometimes, we'll watch patients and we'll hear what they have to say, and they'll say like, I just can't sleep at night. I'm really having a trouble sleeping. And then, I'm just so fatigued in the morning, or like I'm just so wired, I can't calm down, and then I crash in the afternoon. And then when we see their cortisol levels, what we see is this, what should be this peak. So you wake up in the morning, it should be like this, and it should be leveling off and leveling out to go to sleep, and then we should have that peak again. So what we find out is that, in the evening when they say they can't sleep, is because they're peaking instead of leveling out so they can sleep. Again, putting out chemicals such as adrenaline that keeps you, pumped up, so you can't go to sleep. So, the microbiome effect of the adrenal glands is really huge, because it does affect the gene expression of how the adrenal glands function. So it affects catecholamine pathways. Now that's a big word, but catecholamines are a type of neurotransmitter. And so if we can bring that down to help you understand what a catecholamine neurotransmitter might be, I'm sure you've heard of dopamine.
Yes.
Dopamine is a really big neurotransmitter, especially in disease states like Parkinson's. People with Parkinson's are noted to have very low dopamine levels. And so the catecholamine pathways that are made by the adrenals is dopamine, not to mention norepinephrine or epinephrine. So the microbiota or microbiome effect helps with those gene expressions, so it can help regulate those neurotransmitters so that they can be balanced. It's critical.
Wow, lots of science there, and this is all part of where we've got 80% of the neurotransmitters are really created in the gut, is what they're finding from the science within the Microbiome Project. So, all right, great. Those little kidney things are really powerful, to say the least. Just like the pituitary gland, all of them are, as a matter of fact. So next is the pancreas, and the pancreas is it's a 6-inch gland that sits, along underneath the stomach and the small intestine, if I remember that correctly. And there are two. I'm going to read this. There's two. Serves as two glands for the digestive exocrine gland and then the hormone-producing endocrine gland. And there's been a lot of research, as people getting pancreatic cancer. The pancreas is critical in regards to producing insulin and this is critical for type 1 diabetes, because those people who have type 1 diabetes are not producing enough insulin, hence why they have to get insulin shots. Me, having just reversed my type 2 diabetes, I had a different influx of insulin, and it was related to foods that I was eating, and it spiked my sugar, and I had to change the way I was eating to regulate the sugars. But talk about the microbiome and that relationship, especially with regards to diabetes and how that interplays between the microbiome and the pancreas from that respect.
Yeah. Yes, I just want to interject, Jeff. Seeing you this past week, I just want to just give you some accolades and kudos for all the work that you've put in. It's definitely paid off, and you can see not only with your weight loss, but your skin tone and the fact that you've been able to bring your blood sugar under control. I just want to just tell you how much I'm thankful that you put in the work and you saw the results, and
Thank you.
You can move on to be more healthy. But let's get back to the pancreas. So the pancreas, we don't understand. We think that the pancreas is just a digestive gland, right? But it isn't. Right. It deals with digestion as well as an endocrine functions, regulating your not only blood sugar levels, but pancreatic peptides, insulin, glucose, all of that. But it also releases a juice that contains bicarbonate. And we don't, so what that means is when I talk about digestion, we talk about our mouth, we chew it up, it goes down to our stomach, then over to the liver, the gallbladder splurting its bile acids on it. And then the last stop, Joe, is the pancreas. And that guy gets a lot of work today because our lifestyles are very busy. We gobble our food, we don't chew our food, and it's trying to help finalize that digestion. But it also, the reason it puts the bicarbonate on it is because of all the acids that are in that chyme. Before it enters the small intestine, it can burn it. And so it has to actually neutralize it so that you don't have a burning effect going into the small intestine, which is very alkaline. And so the pancreas breaks down your carbohydrates, your proteins, fats in certain foods before it enters the small intestine from the duodenum. And so the microbiome is super cool when you think about what it's doing in the pancreas. It has just been recent. I mean, there has been many, many studies on the pancreas and the microbiome. Does it contain a biome? Is that biome helpful or harmful? And so one thing that they have found is that in the pancreas, you have specific microbiome in there. And so they have noticed in people who have disease states of the pancreas, we won't get into specific disease states, but
Right.
they have noticed that those individuals actually have 1,000-time-fold concentration of bacteria in that pancreas. So the diversity of the good flora, such as your microbiome, is no longer there, and the bacteria is taken over, creating a lot of inflammation. Therefore, it not only affects the diversity of the microbiome, but it also affects the function of the pancreas. So they're seeing that relationship is likely to cause some disease states down the road if it's not taken care of.
Wow, that's pretty intense. I mean, as we're, a lot more than I do, but as I'm learning about the microbiome and the importance it is to your general health, it's really too bad we didn't know about this when we were younger. But as the saying goes, it's better late than never, and that's the way I look at reversing my type 2 diabetes, because there are so many things out there that you can reverse and not just maintain, which is what Western medicine is doing today, because that's the way they were taught, to treat it with drugs. And it's really great that there is a platform to be able to present people and with other options, which is really, really good. The last one is we're going to talk about the stomach and how the stomach produces a hormone called gastrin, and it's produced by the G cells. And there's just so much about the stomach. Why don't you share with us what you think the most important aspect of the stomach is at this particular point in regards to the microbiome, and how we can really focus on getting it into a very clean state.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that we don't truly understand is, and this is new to us, is that the stomach does have its own microbiome. And in fact, really, when you pull the body apart, all types of organs have microbiomes to it,
Right.
including our skin. And so, the stomach, it coordinates the digestive process, but it's also a chemical messenger that signals different areas of the body within the digestive process. So it secretes enzymes for digestion, and it's a chemical process that takes place. It stimulates muscle contraction and relaxation. So what that means is you have a sphincter at the top and a sphincter at the bottom, and it's driven by pH. So some people think that when they get the acid reflux and heartburn and that type of thing, it's because they're over acid. What that really is that pH isn't correct, and so because those sphincters are driven on pH, they haven't closed. Yeah.
Okay.
And so when you shift that, then the stomach starts working like it's supposed to, and it allows the food to move in and out through the stomach, so it keeps it from going other places. It also increases.
Yeah, I was an acid reflux sufferer for years, and knock on wood, it's been, I think, 6 years now. It's been non-existent. So sorry to interrupt, but
no, we actually work very hard with the patients that come into our office of getting them off proton pump inhibitors, because the stomach needs to be acid, folks. That's the only organ in the body that God created to be as acid as it is. And the reason it is because when you eat food, there's bacteria, there's fungi. I mean, we can eat the healthiest food as possible, but it's still contaminated, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so it goes through that process, and that acid kills those pathogens. And when you alkalize the stomach, then those acids don't kill that bacteria, and that bacteria goes other places like your small intestine and your large intestine. And there's been a very interesting study through the New England Journal of Medicine back actually in the 60s, which is really profound. Here we are in 2019,
Right.
and back in the 60s they were already showing an increase in colorectal intestinal cancers because of the use of proton pump inhibitors.
Oh, wow.
So, we're changing that whole diversity, the acidity, and the microbiome of the stomach when we alkalize something that shouldn't be alkalized. It also regulates the flow of water and electrolytes between the gut and the bloodstream. So that's huge, especially, so that we don't get dehydrated, and how that absorption factor takes place. The gut or the stomach per se is, there are 5 really important hormones that the stomach releases. Gastrin, we're going to talk about. There's 5 others. One deals with the motility of the gut. And so sometimes when we have constipation or diarrhea, we need to look at the stomach, right? Not just
Right.
the bowel. And so gastrin is a hormone that your stomach makes to fuel the release of gastric acid. So that's that acid that's going to break down all your food and all the goodies in there so that your body can absorb all the nutrients. And your body needs it. Otherwise, you can't absorb the nutrients that are in there. And the most important 2 nutrients that it helps really break down is proteins and amino acids. So, and we need that protein for every function in the body. And do you know your stomach makes roughly 2 to 3 liters of gastric fluid a day? That is huge. That was just
Wow.
like, I was trying to imagine that in a bottle, and that's a lot.
That is a
That's a
lot.
lot of fluid.
Where does it go?
Well, it's mixed in with the food, and then, remember the electrolytes in the process there. Some of that's reabsorbed for function in the body, and then some of it's eliminated.
Yeah.
So gastric acid is found inside our G cells, and our G cells are like these little flask type cells in the stomach lining. And so it's really important because those are they're an open type of endocrine cell that they regulate the body fluids, our immune responses, and they're totally regulated by the vagus nerve. That vagus nerve, boy, he's our pal, isn't he?
He certainly is, or she.
Yeah.
Could be a she.
Yeah, she, yeah. And so gastrin also is involved in the biology of our circadian rhythm. So our circadian rhythm is our body clock. Our wake cycles, our sleep cycles. So
Right.
our stomach, we don't really give our stomach enough credit. So when we talk about that gut instinct, there's a lot of players there that are really affecting our overall health. And so the microbiota, again, it just affects every aspect of the body. But within the stomach, they have also noted that people with ulcers, oftentimes they're tested for a bacteria called H. pylori. And if they're H. pylori negative, oftentimes it is a microbiome balance or an imbalance. And to be able to heal those ulcers that are within, and a lot of times changing the stomach, because it's so important for breaking down our food. Things such as common medications can affect it. Something so simple as, again, the proton pump inhibitors can totally affect it. Stress can affect it. The things that we eat can really affect it, because if we eat high carbohydrate foods, then all we're doing is reseeding our gut with flora that will only live off of carbohydrates and not do other processes. So when we look at those 4 areas, it's really critical how they come together, and then we're going to pair them together of how they're going to break down hormones in our next series, because otherwise we're going to be on here a couple hours, and we want to honor your time.
I know. I mean, I'm just, my head is like spinning like a top. We've only done 4 out of the 15 glands, and it's like, it's overwhelming. Those little things are producing and managing the human body. It's just crazy. So let's do one more area here before we open it up for Q&A. So there's a lot of great products out there that, really address the gut from a probiotic and prebiotic perspective, and on top of foods that are out there. But what makes our product line different, not a little different, a lot different, is the fact that the plant-based selections target specific neurotransmitters that are in your gut that address the gut and the brain, as well as the vagus nerve. So it opens up that communication. And what is really different is that when you look at it from a scientific perspective, you've got the genome, the species, and then the strain. And we target the strain within the species of the genome of the microorganism within the gut flora, and we're the only company that's doing that. And that's why we're having so much success, because we're targeting specific microbiota at that level. So share with the viewers, what people need to look for if they're really targeting specific conditions that that they want to work with the gut and the brain, because in reality it is the gut and the brain that we need, but what's out there today only focuses on the gut, not on the brain. Correct?
Correct. So we want to focus on both, because the gut plays, as you can see, a huge role in things such as those neurotransmitters that we talked about. And even when we talk about things like serotonin, we're thinking about depression, right? But serotonin is an inhibitory hormone, but when it's out of, sorry, not a hormone, and I want to clarify that, it's a neurotransmitter. But it is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. When it's out of balance, we can have sleep issues. It affects our body. It can affect pain levels. So people don't put these things together of how our different neurotransmitters, even though that they may not affect and we may not feel depressed or moody or sad, how it's affecting other areas in the body. So we have, our company has put together some amazing probiotics that are specifically targeted to not only affect the gut, but to help balance the neurotransmitters, because we do know that once you have a gut imbalance, which I'm going to say 96%, 97% of the world, if not within the United States, has that issue. We start seeing some different challenges within the body. And that's why we're seeing such targeted results, because they have gone in and specifically pointed at those different areas. The body's able to uptake it, and we start seeing shifts in inflammation as well as mood changes. People feel more whole, they feel better. That's what's exciting, because there's a lot of different products on the market, and trying to wade through them all. Our product is the only product in the market that also addresses the neurotransmitters.
Awesome. That's great. Well, thank you, Dr. Georgia. Let me make a couple of announcements here first, and then I want to open it up to the attendees if they have any questions for us. So again, thank you, Dr. Georgia, for coming on board as always, providing this wealth of information. And so September 26th will be part 2 of the Hormones and Microbiome series. And in October we're going to be talking about cancer, and November, baby microbiome, and then December, we're going to be addressing Parkinson's, ALS, and dementia/Alzheimer's. So that will take us into the end of this year, and then stay tuned for the schedule for next year. But for those of you who are on, reach out to the individual who invited you to follow up if there's any questions. And what I'd like to do now is I'm going to unmute everybody. I'm also going to leave the recording on, because I think questions are really important. And those who, I know some people reached out to me, said they were working or they had something else going on. And questions are good. And I want to be able to, answer those. So those of you, I'm going to be asking you, I'm going to ask you to start your video. So those who are talking in the background, if you could hold off for a few minutes and turn on your videos. Okay.
Let me tell you, if you're back behind the desk,
So I've unmuted everybody, and I've requested for you guys to start your videos. Do you know where to start those? If you go into the lower left-hand corner, there we go. Hey, there she is.
Hello, sorry, I was multitasking here.
And that's okay. We got Connie and Penny. Connie and Penny, are you going to turn your videos on?
Oh.
Come on. Don't be afraid. There we go.
You're beautiful. Look at her. She's beautiful.
Hi, Penny.
Hi.
Come on, Connie. Let's go. Let's go. Turn that on. You're talking, but we don't see you. All right, let's open it up for questions. Who wants to go first? Penny. Oh, do you talk?
Sorry, that was me.
Do you speak it? Oh, that's your dogs. Bea, any questions?
No, that was just a lot to digest. It'd be nice to see some things visually with all that information.
Okay, well, okay, that's a really good point, and we could possibly put together, some slides for future discussions. Okay, I'll talk to Dr. Georgia about that. I did have that visual of the human body with the breakdown of the different glands and the hormones that they actually create. So, but I'll pull that together and send it out to everybody. Okay.
Okay.
Penny.
Yes.
Come on, don't be afraid.
I kind of like the other lady. It's a lot to process. Some things I've learned from Georgia in the past that kind of resonated with me. I'm very interested in it. My mother died 4 years ago now with pancreatic cancer, type 2 diabetic. So it all is very interesting to me. And we've constantly been on trying to do a journey of healthy eating, healthy. But I battle it on I wouldn't even say a daily basis. I battle it on a minute-to-minute basis for myself. Being diabetic myself, type 2, it's difficult. So hearing some of the pancreatic stuff really caught my interest, and so it's something I would love to hear more.
Yeah, I mean, and reach out. That I lost 58 pounds and reversed my type 2 diabetes.
I did read your thing the other day. It was very amazing.
And I mean, just planting a seed here. I managed it for like 15 years and found out that I could reverse it. And then once I made the decision to, it was hard in the beginning. I would say for the first 2 months to 2 months. But after that, I got in a roll and I just kept being persistent, consistent to doing it, because the ultimatum is amputation, blindness.
Yeah.
You've got a heart disease and all those other things that follow. So those are things that you got to do. That's what I thought about. So, nope, bad. Okay. All right, Connie, do you have any questions? She's being silent.
One of the things is our Zooms are power packed with a lot of information. It is recorded, so we'll make sure that you get the recording and just reviewing it over again so that you hear and it gets in here, because I have the medical background, but I think wanting to give a little bit pieces of knowledge here and there, but then giving tools so that we can fix it. One of the things that's really exciting is that there's no judgment here, and going through the B3 project and helping not only with weight loss, but helping to get those sugars under control and helping to really reverse that mindset so that you can be successful long term. And that's the goal, is, you know, no more yo-yoing up and down and trying to fix it. Let's make it a lifestyle that can be easily applied and used on a daily basis.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what it was for me, Penny, is that I basically incorporated this into a new lifestyle, because if I didn't, you know, change that mindset, I'd go back to, because I've lost the weight before, but I've gained it all back.
Mm-hmm.
Even before I moved down, I lost 25 pounds before I moved down to Florida, and then it all came back on within a month. But again, it's lifestyle, it's what you're eating, and be cognizant of what you're putting into your mouth, and that is critical for type 2 diabetes, you know. And as far as the weight is concerned, I just anteed up on the exercise portion of it. And you need to do that to get the weight off quick. I mean, 6 months is not a long time, but I didn't want to drop really fast, because I think it's too harsh on the body. So it was a gradual loss. So then it's easier on the body, in the mind, and then now it's a matter of just maintaining. So
right. I agree.
And the nice thing too, Penny, is our company is starting to put together some recipes and things that are really doable, and go-to snacks and things that you can do to really, when you feel like you need something maybe on a sweeter level, or something that's crunchy, but it's healthy and it tastes great. So we got to taste those at the convention too, and boy, were they were tasty, and to know that they were healthy was a great bonus.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna say thank you to everybody. I'm gonna pause, or I'm gonna stop the recording, then we can continue to talk. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. And on the 26th, we'll do part 2 of getting to the root of it, and your hormones and how they relate to the microbiome. Thank you.